Hi, my name is Joe Jackson. I'm a journalist, author, interviewer, broadcaster and podcaster. And today, December the 8th, 2023, while I was compiling an anthology of podcasts that included clips from Sinead O'Connor, Shane MacGowan and Christy Dignam, I came across a clip from the latter which I'd forgotten about and that didn't make it into the anthology. This was an exchange Christy and I had in 2000 about the author Roddy Doyle. Christy's attack on Doyle was not prompted by me, but it did remind me, and I refer to this during the following clip, of the position I had taken in print against the writings of Roddy Doyle and an Irish theatre group called Passion Machine, with whom he was involved during the mid-1980s. I wrote an article then that was headlined Working Class Heroes, with a question mark. And in it I suggested that in books such as The Commitments, and by the way I later argued this point with Alan Parker, the director of the movie of that book, Doyle misrepresents the Dublin working class to what I saw as a disgusting degree. Incidentally, that little article led to me being taken off the press list for tickets to Passion Machine productions, even though some actors later told me they agreed with what I had said, and it led to Mr. Doyle attacking me in print. So be it. But here we have the late Christy Dignam, another proud member of the Dublin working class, like myself, explaining why he detests the work of Roddy Doyle. And I would point out here that the interview we were doing was for a radio show about Christy's musical influences, and what follows was never broadcast, until more recently, when it became part of the podcast world.
How serious an issue was? I know it's something you're very aware of, and even in relation to your book, you do not want to present a reductive or kind of insulting, very simple-minded view of working class people.
Yeah, no, I think I've met people that are academically very, have achieved a lot academically, and they're idiots, And then I've met working class people who perhaps didn't have a great academic education, but I'd consider them very, very, very clever, And I think that whole, Roddy Doyle to me is as successful as he is. To me, he really annoyed me. And, I remember seeing the Snapper and they're sitting at their dinner table and it's kind of, pass the effing salt, man, give us that,
Yeah, I do, yeah.
And I hated that, perpetuating this kind of working class, dullard kind of scumbag kind of myth. And he goes off then, with his royalties and lives in this kind of upper class or middle class thing. And nothing against, I'm not trying to be make this, any class, but you can't perpetuate and annihilate one class and then move on and leave that class there to live in that the crap that's a result of what you've created. And to me, he made working class people out to be idiots, that their vocabulary was so limited that you had to put an F and a B behind every second word. Now I use that kind of language when I'm speaking, but it's because that's where I was reared within that language. And if I want to sit down and not use it, I can. But I wanted to say working class people don't have to be that, that we're not all idiots, And in fact, some of us, because of the obstacles that we've had to overcome in our lives, have become very kind of streetwise and clever, And to me, that gives you a better survival chance, I think, than an academic education a lot of the time,
Yeah, well, I've gone in print, and I'd agree with you about Roddy Doyle's work and the theatre group called Passion Machine. I remember at the time all that stuff was going on. I was teaching out in your area in Finglas and Scolida, and I read out some of the sections of what he'd written to the women and men there, and they found it just as insulting, terribly insulting and reductive.
Well, I've been born and reared in a working class area all my life, and I have never sat in somebody's home that they could use that kind of language in their home, and
not getting bugs in the air.
Man, you wouldn't even get the first F word out, and you'd get the sauce bottle across the skull.
Well, that's almost perpetuating the same image. I haven't seen anyone get a sauce bottle across the skull.
This day, I wouldn't be able to say that in front of my mother, and out of respect, I wouldn't. I mean, she wouldn't hit me now, she wouldn't chastise me now. But I still, out of respect, would never speak like that in front of my mother,
So I think we should play and dedicate to Roddy Doyle, Maybe the Times They Are Changing.
Yeah, cracking song, yeah. They are changing, Roddy. You know what I effing mean, Roddy?
Hi, Joe Jackson here again. I thank you for listening to this edition of the Joe Jackson Interviews podcast.